This special news report is brought to you by Durango TV News. The Trump campaign. Republican Vice Presidential candidate Mike Pence in Durango.
Let's start on the security front. Despite traveling millions of miles as our Secretary of State, it is undeniable. The world is more dangerous today than the day that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama took over American foreign policy. Our allies are less secure, our enemies are more emboldened. 7.5 years of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton's brand of foreign policy has weakened America's place in the world. You can look at a map of the wider Middle East when these people took over American foreign policy, and look at a map of the wider Middle East today where American soldiers are in harm's way fighting to retake ground that was lost in Iraq under this administration. You can't even recognize the map. You know, history teaches us that weakness arouses evil. And I would submit to you that Donald Trump and I know what most Americans know, that the weak and feckless foreign policy, a foreign policy of leading from behind, moving red lines, feigning resets with Russia, has literally emboldened our competitors and our adversaries around the world. And Hillary Clinton's been at the very center of it. And you got to know that. It was Hillary Clinton who was responsible to negotiate an agreement to keep American forces in Iraq. She failed to renegotiate that by the end of 2011. And so they pulled all the American forces out of Iraq, created a vacuum in which the terrorist organization ISIS was able to overrun vast areas that had been won at enormous sacrifice by the American soldier. You know, before I take one step further, I have to tell you, I'm sure there are men and women who've worn the uniform in the near term and in the long term in this country. When I think of the sacrifices that our soldiers have made, whether it was in Iraq or Afghanistan or in every battlefield for America, would you all just raise your hand if you've worn the uniform and let us thank you one more time for your service to this nation. It was Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama who created that vacuum in Iraq. And today, at this very hour, on battlefields around Mosul, 5,000 American soldiers are in harm's way trying to win back what had been squandered by this administration. It was also Hillary Clinton who initiated that disastrous agreement with the radical mullahs in Iran. They got $150 billion. All we got was a delay in their nuclear ambitions. I mean, in a very real sense, all that agreement accomplished was delaying the ambitions of the leading state sponsor of terrorism in the world to obtain the world's most powerful weapons. And the worst of it was, on the day that Iran released 4 American hostages, this administration, with Hillary Clinton's full support, delivered $400 million in cash on a wooden pallet to the airport in Tehran. Let me make you a promise. When Donald Trump is president of the United States of America, we won't be paying ransom to terrorist sponsoring states. They'll be paying a price if they threaten or detain the American people. And lastly, and it needs to be said, and one of the parents of the fallen will be there tonight at that debate. It was Hillary Clinton and her State Department who left Americans in harm's way in Benghazi. And after 4 Americans fell, she told those parents it was because of a filmmaker back here in the States. When Congress would find out that she knew the night of the attack, it was the anniversary of 9/11, she knew that it was a Al-Qaeda style terrorist attack. I mean, go rent the movie. 13 hours, you'll see it was wave upon wave of highly organized attack, but they said it was a spontaneous riot. And she told the families that we were going to hold a filmmaker to account. When she was questioned before the Senate about that, all she had to say was, quote, "What difference at this point does it make?" Let me say something to you, Colorado. As the proud father of a United States Marine, anybody that said that about the fallen, anybody who did that should be disqualified from ever serving as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the United States of America. We cannot have 4 more years apologizing to our enemies and abandoning our friends. Donald Trump and I both know, for the world to be safe, for America to be secure, America must be strong. And Donald Trump will lead on the world stage with American strength. We will rebuild our military. We will restore the arsenal of democracy. We will provide our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines with the resources and the training they need and deserve. And we will hunt down and destroy ISIS and any terrorist organization that threatens our people or inspires violence here at home. You know, that kind of leadership is probably why more than 160 retired admirals and generals and more than 17 Medal of Honor winners have endorsed Donald Trump to be the next Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the United States. You know, it's not just about security abroad, but it's about safety here at home. And men and women here in Durango, you know, this has been a very challenging time for people that wear the uniform of law enforcement. It seems like more than ever, it's when tragedy happens in the wake of law enforcement action, too many in the media and too many in politics are willing to use a broad brush to demean those who put their lives on the line each and every day. I know there's an awful lot of first responders and law enforcement personnel that are with us here today. Would you all just mind showing these folks how much you appreciate the job they do each and every day? Let me make you a promise. When he becomes the chief law enforcement officer of the United States, President Donald Trump will support our law enforcement community at every level and provide the resources they need to protect our families and go home safe to theirs. And Donald Trump will restore law and order to every community and every city in the land. That's probably why the largest police officers union in America, 330,000 strong Fraternal Order of Police, endorsed Donald Trump to be the next president of the United States of America. So it's about security at home and abroad. Those are the big things this election's really all about. But it's also about prosperity. I don't know about the rest of you here in Colorado, but back in the Hoosier State, I can tell you, any progress we've made in the last 7.5 years has been in spite of what they've been doing in Washington, D.C., not because of it. I mean, we're in the midst of the weakest economic recovery since the Great Depression. Millions more Americans are living in poverty today than the day that Barack Obama took office in 2009. We have the lowest labor participation rate since the 1970s. Don't be deceived by that unemployment rate. It just bounced back up nationally. But the truth is, there's millions of Americans who've just given up on looking for work here in Colorado and all across the country. Hillary Clinton's plan? More of the same. Not just the same. More of the same. I mean, Barack Obama raises taxes, increased regulations, passes Obamacare, wages a war on American energy, and Hillary Clinton wants to add to all of it $1 trillion in tax increases, $2 trillion in spending, more regulation, more Obamacare, and more of the war on American energy that is stifling growth and stifling the American recovery. And I join this campaign in a heartbeat, because you have nominated a man for president who never quits, who never backs down. He is a fighter. He is a winner. And until not too long ago, it seemed like he was out there fighting all on his own, but now this movement is coming together. Colorado is coming together. We're going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States of America. Because Donald Trump's got a plan. Hillary Clinton wants to raise taxes by $1 trillion. We're going to work with a newly re-elected Congress, House and the Senate. We're going to cut taxes across the board for working families, small businesses, and family farms and ranchers. We're going to get rid of death taxes once and for all. And we're going to lower business taxes in America from one of the highest in the Western world to one of the lowest, so companies in Colorado can fight to keep jobs here in Colorado instead of seeing them go overseas. And Donald Trump and I know that that avalanche of acronyms coming out of Washington, D.C. is also killing jobs here in Colorado. You know what I'm talking about. You got your EPA, you got your OSHA, you got your DOE, you got your A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So day one of the Trump-Pence administration, he's going to do what I did in Indiana. He's going to sign a moratorium on any new federal red tape, and we're going to repeal every single executive order signed by Barack Obama that's stifling jobs and growth in this economy. And when Donald Trump becomes negotiator in chief, you with me on this one? Yeah. Tell this little girl, that's not in the Constitution. Yet. When Donald Trump becomes negotiator in chief, we're going to renegotiate NAFTA. We're going to get out of this TPP deal entirely, and we're going to negotiate trade deals that put American jobs and the American economy first. And lastly, because as you know well in Colorado and we know in the Hoosier State, among the God-given blessings of this nation are our vast natural resources. Day one of a Trump-Pence administration, the war on coal comes to an end. We're going to develop an all-of-the-above energy strategy. We're going to develop all the resources of this land to power a boundless American future. And lastly, we're going to do away with what Bill Clinton called the craziest thing in the world. Did you hear about this one? I mean, we were fine. I was back in the Congress. I served 12 years in the Congress. I tell people if I only had 12 years left to live, I'd want to live it as a member of Congress, because that was the longest 12 years of my life. The truth of the matter is, we fought like dogs against the Affordable Care Act. We knew there wasn't anything affordable about the Affordable Care Act. The truth is, we all set out to kind of lower the cost of health insurance, and pretty soon all the liberals took over, and all they did was grow the size of government, right? You'll never convince me that ordering every American to buy health insurance, whether they want it or need it or not, is any solution to our healthcare economy. But Hillary Clinton, she gives a paid speech up in Canada. Came out not too long ago that she said that her goal was a Canadian-style healthcare system. That's socialized medicine, all right? But her husband observed the fact that under Obamacare here in Colorado and elsewhere around the country, you've seen premiums go up and coverage has gone down, and he called it, quote, the craziest thing in the world. You know, sometimes even with the Clintons, truth happens. So I'm going to tell you what, in addition to cutting taxes, rolling back red tape, releasing the boundless American economy, energy's reserves, and having trade deals that work for the American worker, we're going to repeal Obamacare, lock, stock, and barrel. And we're going to replace it not with the socialized medicine that Hillary wants to bring in from Canada. We're going to replace it with health care reform that focuses on lowering the cost of health insurance instead of growing the size of government. We're going to answer the health care needs of the American economy with free market principles and consumer choice. Not more government. That's the American way. So it's about security at home and abroad. It's about our prosperity. But also it's probably about one more thing. It has to do with the highest court in the land. You know, with the passing of the late and great Justice Antonin Scalia, literally the balance of the Supreme Court is on the ballot in this election. I mean, there was a decision, a 5-4 decision, just a few short years ago that recognized that that plain right in the Second Amendment of the Constitution is the individual right of every American. But it was a 5-4 decision. And Hillary Clinton said it was wrongly decided. Said it was wrongly decided. I mean, men and women, you elect Hillary Clinton President of the United States, and just get used to more unelected judges using unaccountable power to take unconstitutional actions. You heard her in that last debate. She was asked about qualifications for the Supreme Court. She didn't talk about resumes. She talked about a checklist, a to-do list. Did you follow that? But you elect Donald Trump as President of the United States of America? You're going to have a president who appoints to the Supreme Court of the United States and all of our federal courts men and women who will strictly uphold the Constitution of the United States of America in the tradition of the late and great Justice Antonin Scalia. So I want to say to you, for the sake of the rule of law, for the sake of the sanctity of life, for the sake of that Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, for the sake of all the God-given liberties that are enshrined in our founding documents, Colorado, we just got to decide here and now that the next president to make appointments to the Supreme Court of the United States will be President Donald Trump. These are the big things. These are the big issues. These are the issues that reach your kitchen table. They reach your street corner. They speak about America's place in the world, and they speak about the opportunities our children and our grandchildren can have. And I hope you came here today. I hope you came here today not just to hear a speech, because I didn't come here today just to give a speech. I hope you came here today. I hope you came here today to leave with a burden on your heart to go tell somebody. I mean, Colorado is going to play a leading role in the decision the American people will make. Make no mistake about it. And you got to go tell somebody. I started out by pointing out, it's a 2-on-1 fight out there every day. It really and truly is. But the reason why we see the momentum growing in this race, the reason why we see this movement continuing to move forward all across this country, I think is because the American people are talking to each other. And so I want you to go tell somebody. I want you to go tell somebody at worship, at work. I want you to tell them over a backyard fence. I want you to find a neighbor and a friend and tell them that this isn't one of those ordinary elections. I know this never happens in Colorado, but sometimes in Indiana, there's not a dime's worth of difference between the two people running. That never happens here, right? It's not, right? I mean, seriously, sometimes I've gone to elections in my life and said, well, if my candidate wins, it'll be this good. If the other person wins, it'll probably still be about that good, right? This isn't such a time, folks. This isn't really even a choice between left and right, or Republican or Democrat. To me, as Ronald Reagan said back in 1964, this is a choice between up and down. This is a choice between whether or not we're going to continue to go downhill to a weaker America on the world stage, to more cutbacks in the arsenal of democracy, emboldening our enemies, abandoning our friends, a weaker and more stifled American economy, walking farther away from our most cherished constitutional principles and ideals, or whether we're going to stop, plant our feet, turn around, and march back up the hill to a stronger America at home and abroad, a more prosperous America, an America that upholds and cherishes our highest constitutional ideal. That's what you got to go tell your neighbors and friends. It's that clear of a choice. And tell them, if you want that change, if you want to make America strong again, if you want to make America prosperous again, if you want to build it all on those highest constitutional ideals, tell your neighbors and friends you have but one choice. Tell them I told you that man is ready. This team is ready. This movement is ready. And now you got to go make sure Colorado is ready. And we're going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States of America. That's how it's going to work.
This special news report has been brought to you by Durango TV News. Visit durangotv.com for more news about Southwest Colorado and the Four Corners.